Hi, my name is Jonas Lefebvre-Sejersen. I'm a researcher at the Lab from Aarhus University. In this video, I'm going to present our recent work in safe vessel navigation in congested harbor and waterways. Let's start looking at the problem we're trying to solve. Here we see a ship docking in a harbor. A problem for the captain is to know the distance between his vessel and the other surrounding objects, which today in many cases are communicated through radio from a third person standing on the dock estimating this distance. So our paper tackles the problem of estimating and communicating these distances to the captain through the use of autonomous UAVs and easily presenting the results to the captain. To communicate the distances, a model of the ship is split into smaller sections, as we can see here on the right. And the shortest distance to any of these sections is displayed to the captain. So here to present our full pipeline. For this presentation, we will split it up into 3 sections, explaining the functionality of each. First, we start with the semantic segmentation section. The objective of this section is to identify the solid objects surrounding the vessel. We do this by training a network to categorize each pixel into 3 classes: water, ship, and unknown. To train the network, we are using a lot of simulated images. This prevents the model from overfitting and compensates for the low amount of real images in the training set. The main functionality of the simulated images is to introduce new shapes, colors, lighting, and water waves. Then we also have a few real images. This is to introduce all the features that's harder to generate from simulation, like wake movements, reflection of water surfaces, and random patterns. The test set is recorded from a separate day, with a different ship than we have seen in the training data. And then we have the ground truth and the output of our chosen model here. We tested a few different networks: BICENet, HARDNet, and DDRNet, but found that in our use case, HARDNet is outperforming the other 2 networks, with a slight cost in performance speed. So to conclude this section, we are taking in an RBG image and we segment it into 3 classes: water, ship, and unknown. We then merge the ship and unknown class into a solid class to have a binary mask. Lastly, we find the counter along all the solid objects we found in the image. The next section we talk about is the global sensor projection into camera frame. As input, we take the GPS and magnetometer from both UAV and the ship. With this information, we can make a transformation from the local ship coordinates into the camera frame located on the UAV. The information we are going to transform is the ship model. The ship model contains where the GPS antenna is located on the ship and how big the sections of the ship is. With this information, we can draw each sections on the image plane, as we can see here on the right. Then, for each section, we compute the region of interest by projecting the orthogonal vector of a section onto the image boundings. We then do this for all the sections. And when this is done, given a point in the image, we can locate the corresponding section given by the region of interest it contains in. Each point found in the region of interest is sure to have the shortest distance to its corresponding section. The last part of our pipeline is to find the shortest distance for all sections of the ship. To do this, we combine the 2 findings of the previous sections. So, to find the smallest distance in a section, let's call it V. For a given point in the contour, which is located inside of V, we can project it down to our section and find the squared distance between the 2 points. Doing this for all the contour points contained inside V, we have a set D of squared distances. The shortest distance is then to just find the shortest squared distance inside of set of D and take the square root of this distance. Now, all we need is just to convert this into Euclidean distance. To do this, we use the ground sampling distance, which uses the camera model to compute the size of 1 pixel on the ground level. What we need to compute the ground sampling distance is the altitude of the UAV, the camera sensor width and height, the focal length, and the image width and height. With this, we can compute the ratio between pixels and the Euclidean distance. So these 3 sections combined is what makes our whole pipeline. Next up is our experiments. Our experiments are performed in simulations, since ground truth distance between real docking vessels and the surrounding obstacles was not available during experiments. So in simulation, we're using raycasting to compute the exact ground truth between the vessel and all the surrounding objects in the environment. Our experiment evaluates how well the pipeline performs given different altitudes. Here we're ranging from 30 to 150 meters above sea level. As for results, as shown in the left chart, we have the mean absolute error and the standard deviations. We can see that the standard deviation is getting bigger when we go above the 100 meters. This is expected since the network is only trained on images up to the 100-meter mark. Combining this with the effect of using ground sampling distance, each pixel is converted to a higher Euclidean distances, meaning smaller area in segmentation punishes the pipeline by a lot. Shown on the right chart, we can see that the amount of outliers for each altitude, where the outliers are getting more frequent and larger after the 100-meter mark. So here's an example of our pipeline working in the simulation environment as well. As we can see here, when it's approaching the harbor, the numbers are getting lower and lower, showing the captain that we are getting closer to the harbor. And our next result is showing our pipeline working on a real case scenario. As we can see here, the yellow lines coming from the ship to the dock is the shortest distance that we found in the image for each section. We then convert this into the user interface that we can see on the right. And on the lower part, we can see the segmented image we're finding. So this is all the solid objects we're finding in the image. As we can see here, there's no real way to actually evaluate how well the performance is, since we don't know the ground truth of this. But this result is just to show that it actually works on a real case scenario. Well, that's it for me. Thank you for listening.